Welcome to part 2 of my conversation with the latest Seatton guest. If you haven't heard the first part, start with the previous episode number. But if you have, let's pick up right where we left off.
But we were getting to that point where I needed to get a tutor. So
So how old
this
now?
was probably 14, 15.
Okay.
Yeah, his name is Alessandro. And we, from 14 to 18, tutoring all the way, once a week, a call. Although that was the structure, right? The structure for me was the weekly call because more of like teaching the stuff, it was, how's it going? What is something that you're having difficulty with? Because to be completely honest, most of my time, the learning was self-guided. I was given the books. I was given the time. See, that's the biggest thing. I was given the time to learn and read and take my time. And so it basically was like that. Up until ages 10, it was very how could I say this? Programmed, so to speak. And instead then it took a more self-directed turn, because that's something that at least in our family we try to encourage, right? When you're younger, really just figure out what you like, what you enjoy. When you're older, start to specialize, start to understand what it is you really want to do. And I mean, of course, that doesn't mean that you're limited. You should never limit your options. But to acquire a skill, be it in maths, be it in literature, be it in anything, just understand something that you're good at and pursue it. So just to wrap things up, yeah, it was self-guided and tutoring once a week. That's what made it happen for me.
That's so interesting, Thomas, because I think you've made a point that might come naturally to you, but is so important to make. When you say tutoring, so many people come from a background of traditional, conventional school, and you made the perfect point there that it is so different home educating. It's not like a teacher stands at the front of the class and talks at you for an hour. And it sounds like that was totally not what Alessandro was doing. He was holding your hand along that journey, that you were actually progressing on yourself, but you had the autonomy and perhaps the maturity from the experience you'd had studying to know what you needed to ask. It's interesting. I spoke to a home educating mother once, and her daughter went to school for a day, and she said, "Mum, I'm so confused. Why was the teacher asking all the questions?" Because obviously in school settings, you have the teacher standing at the front asking a question, you put your hands up and the kids answer it. And she said, "But isn't it the pupils who are meant to be learning? Why aren't they saying, what about this question? What about this question?" And actually it struck me that that's a big difference in a style of learning. If you're able to ask the questions that you don't understand or that you want further depth on, that's actually a very useful skill for life, because knowing the questions to ask is a big part of making sense of the world, I think, when you get older. Would you agree?
I would, yes. And I feel like exactly what you're saying, we have in school this teacher-student relationship where the teacher knows everything and the student, of course, I'm not saying they know nothing, but they kind of need to hang on their words and listen carefully, or if not, they'll get a bad grade. But really, with the tutoring and in general the learning I had with my parents, it was never I'm the teacher, you're the student. It's precisely what you're saying. It was more of a guiding force. It was like, here, come with me, let's go on a journey together, let's explore this subject, right? And a lot of the times we could dedicate more time to the less studied areas as well. For example, in A-level maths, a lot of the times teachers skip over the proofs. And I know this because one of the resources I used was YouTube, right? We as homeschoolers learn to use the internet. The internet is our friend, right? We are careful because we know that in general, as all people, we know that the internet is a dangerous place and you should be careful. But if used in the correct manner, the internet is an amazing boon to humanity. So
Mm.
that's the way we learned it. That's how we evolved together through our learning journey, right? And so a lot of times in the lectures and other things, the proofs were completely skipped over. And for me, the proof is a key point because I need to know why, right? Um,
Mm.
and I always need to know why. And sometimes it's to my detriment because, maybe you could just solve the exercise and move on to the next
Mm.
topic. But I'm stubborn, and and this was a key thing. So yes, yes, absolutely. It was never someone talking down to someone else. It was
Mm.
always a friendly conversation where you could be open and ask questions.
Mm. And actually, I think when you're learning that way, it actually allows for a much greater mastery because no one's saying, "Oh, it's the 7th week. We've got to move on to the next topic." You move on when you've understood why.
Exactly. Yes, yes. And see, um, in some sense, the school offers security because they have this program, it's this curriculum, all can see it, and they're like, this is what we're doing, and this is when we're doing it, and this is how we're doing it, right? And it's this sense of security that a lot of people
Mm.
need, right? But with home education, right? We're more adaptable, we're more flexible, and we're ready to say, hey, you need another day on this? We can make it happen. We can make it happen as
Mm.
long as as long as we're focused and we know that we're not wasting our time, because that's the risk.
Mm.
The risk is lingering. The risk is not moving forward. As long as we know that, as long as time is used in a conscious manner,
Mm.
anything is game.
And actually, you made that point earlier that very early on in your homeschooling journey, you were learning to self-analyze how you were spending your time, whether you were lingering, whether you were mucking around, or actually you were learning quite quickly how to moderate that for yourself, it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's just one of the skills that home
Mm.
education gave me.
Yeah, I
Self
was going to ask, what else?
Yeah, self-discipline ties into that. It ties into that because, like I said before, you're responsible for yourself. Um, Another one is, and I know this sounds a bit cliche, but a deep love for learning, a deep, deep love, right?
Mm.
That never ever stops. The last one would be critical thinking and the ability to
Mm.
research and learn independently, right? Because a lot of times they're like, okay, well, what are we doing? Where's the book? Where's the exercise? Where do I start? Where do I start? A lot of the times the projects I undertook were self-guided, right? Um,
Mm.
for example, writing essays on artificial intelligence, right? There wasn't a text. There was just Google, um, a pen, and a notebook.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, it was self-guided, and that's it.
I was going to ask you how you managed the transition to university. Again, people worry about this. Oh, if they haven't been to school, how will they manage the transition to university? If I just share my experience, I wasn't home educated, of how I managed the transition to university. I went to a very academic school. I went to an academic university. My first week, I'd taken linguistics as a module. I thought that sounded very interesting. Obviously, I hadn't studied linguistics before. And I went into the lecture and the teacher said, right, and this week the topic is, I can't even remember what it was, phonemes, let's say, and I look forward to seeing your essays on it. And I thought, what's the question? I flicked through the sheets that she'd handed out. There was no question. So I went up afterwards. I said, no, I'm sorry, I think I'm missing a piece of paper because I don't have the question that you've set us. She said, well, you set the question. I said, no, I'm the student. I'm meant to answer the question. And she said, no, you can set the question. You find a topic that interests you within this broader topic, and I'm really interested to see 3,000 words on it. And honestly, I was armed with my new university library card. I had not got a clue where to come from. And I'd come from a school that people would say, oh, it prepares you so well for university. And I did not feel prepared at all for that experience. So how did you feel coming from home educating, which sounds like your educational journey was very different during your high school years? How did you feel that transition to university went?
So the transition was smoother than I expected, actually. As a family, we chose to follow the American curriculum. And so I did 3 APs. I also took some A levels. That's a different story.
For fun?
You could say that, yes. Yes. And so becoming more accustomed to the university environment, I think, was something that I feel like your experience was very different from mine. I gotta say, it was smooth. It was smooth. And in short, I'm happy I didn't go through school first, because a lot of the times I'm speaking with my friends, and they see it as another 3 years, another 5 years of the same thing that they just finished. And in my case, I believe university is obviously very different from school. You get to choose what you want to do, and that's a key difference. A key difference. I mean, of course, different school systems in different countries allow varying degrees of liberty, of choice for their students. And that's one of the reasons we chose the American one. For example, in the Italian school system, students have very limited options when it comes to choosing electives. But in short, I gotta say that university so far has been great, and the transition, while slightly uncharted territory, because I am the oldest and
Yeah.
everything is new, I'm enjoying it. So yeah.
And socially, how did you find that transition?
Well, like and like we said before, I wasn't hidden away in a house. I was out and about dancing, breakdancing. I played sports, soccer, karate. I've been out and about, and it was interesting because I got to speak with a lot of like-minded individuals who are into engineering and that kind of thing. Nerds. Um, but but yeah. I believe that it's it's kind of new to me. I gotta say, it's kind of new. I'm used to being with adults and kids in the same room doing all sorts of things together. It's different. It's different. Um, and I've made a few good friends so far.
Yeah, but as you say, it's one stage of life. There's I think we put a lot of emphasis on the model of this, from high school movies upwards. We have all this obsession with a best friend, and actually I think life it's not really like that. You take friends from all these opportunities and all these experiences you have through life. You have friends from all different walks of life and all the different chapters you've had, and university is the one you're in currently, but there were chapters before and there'll be chapters afterwards. And what do you think you might do afterwards? Have you thought about that?
I'd really like to start my own tech company. That's something that I'd like. I believe that technology offers unprecedented means to improve the world, right? That's something that I truly believe in, because for me, at least, the bottom line is to make the world a better place. And I don't know how exactly I'm going to do that, but I'd really like to use the tools that I'm learning, and will learn, right? Consisting of mathematics, hopefully something to do with mathematical models of some sort. But yeah, make the world a better place, and keep teaching, really, because I started when I was 17. I started helping out this friend in math, and I discovered that teaching math is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And so yeah, just helping people around the world. Um, how? I don't have an answer to that question right
Yeah.
now, but in a couple years,
That's
give me a
so
couple
great.
years. Um,
You've answered the right question. I heard recently somebody say that we asked young people the wrong question. We say, what do you want to be when you're older? That's the wrong question, because the jobs that exist now won't exist in 10 years' time, probably. So actually saying, what's the issue you want to address? What's the problem you want to solve? And without me even prompting you, that's exactly what you've just articulated. So I can't think of anyone better placed to try and address that with the skills, with that worldview you have. Yeah, good luck to you. I'm sure you'll do spectacularly, whichever route you choose. Thomas, thank you so much. You are such an inspiration. I so appreciate you coming on to speak to me today.
Thank you. Really, it's been a pleasure. And yeah, thank you. Thank you again.
And thank you at home so much for joining and listening to the Seatton Education Podcast. Whether you watched us on YouTube or you listened as a podcast, please like, comment, follow, review, as we discuss how home education can be an achievable alternative to conventional schooling. I hope to see you next time.